that we really had a very aligned vision on pretty much everything that we talked about. So that was super cool. And now it's cool to be able to sit here and actually chat about everything. So for those of you who are watching and maybe watching this at a later time, Matthew is the owner of Be Strong Fitness here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and also trainer there. I'm going to let him give a little intro for himself as well. But also, if you are watching, and if I'm able to figure it out, this is 100% on me. If you would like to send questions while we're chatting, then you can do that. So you can kind of interact. If you're on this call, you can send little messages as well, and I will hopefully see them. Like I said, I am technologically unadvanced. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, Matthew. And yeah, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about kind of who you are, what you are, like all your kind of background on all this.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, thanks for having me once again. My name is Matthew Sheets, and I've owned Be Strong Health and Fitness for 5 years now. I started the business in 2020, kind of in the midst of COVID, so that was a whole adventure. But I have learned so much since starting 5 years ago, and that has obviously been through running a business, which is a whole adventure in and of itself, but also just my passion is training. And so training just a vast diversity of people with much different needs and much different situations. That has taught me that's just taught me a lot as a trainer and just allowed me to diversify and expand my skill set. Um, yeah, to cater to different needs and different people and different clientele. So um, I love I love that aspect of training just because it feels, as you know, Livy, like it feels very fulfilling when you're able to really change someone's life. And it's been such a privilege to do that. So
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's really awesome to see what you've done. And now I've met other people in the community that have like outside of coming to some of your functions, they're like, oh yeah, like be strong, and like it's really great to be able to see that you're making such an impact on the community in such a positive way, because we need more people like that in this world. And it's kind of how I want to talk about things today too, and like that connection and community that you definitely promote yourself and then also in your business, which is really amazing. But when we kind of start with all of this, like I want to start with like strength specifically, because I feel like a lot of times when we start talking about personal training, that sort of thing, people come into a gym or seek out a personal trainer for strength, or maybe they have other goals that are aesthetic, that sort of thing. But what is like strength? What do you feel like strength means kind of when people initially approach you, and then how maybe it kind of evolves over the course of the time that you're like working with them?
I think strength can mean different things for different people. For the 75-year-old grandparent, strength can mean, not having a lot of pain in their knees when they bend down and play with their grandkids. I think strength for the 32-year-old male can mean hitting a bench press PR, and everything in between. Like there's a lot of adaptability in that conversation, but I think first and foremost that begins with knowing who you're training and knowing who you're serving from a clientele standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and you know this, right? Like the principles of fitness are tried and true. The principles of quality strength training are tried and true, but the way in which you adapt and cater that to the specific client you're working with is the name of the game. That's where the magic happens, and that's where I found the skill set of diversity and exercise selection, but also the way of explaining and coaching and teaching specific movement patterns to people. That's where, once again, the magic happens. Because if you can figure out how to speak to your specific client, then that makes you so much more valuable as a professional in this industry, because you're able to specifically specialize in helping that person with their specific needs. So
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And I mean, I feel like that's definitely something that people, once they kind of get into a gym or they start to see the benefits of having a personal trainer continue finding a consistency within whatever that training looks like for them specifically, and having somebody like yourself, or like how I will like adapt the exercises, whether it's from a PT standpoint or from a personal training standpoint, to what that person actually needs in that time and what their goals are. It makes it so much more approachable for people to understand that this is like a long-term thing rather than just a short-term fix for something. So yeah,
For sure.
definitely. So when you think about, so you kind of posted, or you gave me this this kind of little note, and I'm curious. So muscle as the organ of longevity, what does that mean to you?
That's you're right. It's a very kind of catchy phrase and a very intriguing way of putting it. From a very basic standpoint, and we can get all into the science and how that differentiates from male to female and age and the rate of muscle loss. But I guess to specify and speak very generally, we both know that after the age of mid 30s, early 40s, that like human beings, unless they counteract it with something like strength training, they will lose muscle mass at a certain percentage every year, every decade. That builds up, right? And once again, unless there's anything that counteracts that effect, then people will quite literally shrink in all the ways that we don't want to happen from a longevity standpoint. So my grandfather is 91, right? And he's awesome. He's killing it. He's still strong, but I've seen him really decrease in terms of his muscle mass over the last 5 to 10 years. He's actually working out. He works out once a week, which is awesome. And that's actually helped him quite a bit, even one time a week, right? But I guess my point in bringing this up is to say that, especially as you age, the effects of strength training in a positive way become all that more important, because muscle will allow you to stay mobile. It will allow you to move. And I love what your business is named, Movement Mantra, right? Because movement is medicine. And so as we're able to move, muscle is the enablement for movement, high quality movement. And if we don't have that muscle to support that movement, then we'll become ultimately more sedentary. And that's just a path that no one wants to go down, right? Because that can very much decrease quality of life and ultimately
Yeah.
death. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And like, there are a couple things that came to mind with that. Like, for one, for me, my grandmother during COVID, my mom's a personal trainer back in Knoxville, and I tell this story a lot, which is kind of funny because I have a lot of people who come to me and they're like, oh, I'm just like, I can't get stronger at a certain age or whatever. And I was like, that's totally false. Like, my grandmother, who I think at the time, it's like, mid 80s, it was around COVID, and she couldn't hardly get up out of her chair. Like, she had a really difficult time standing up from her chair. And my mom is very blunt and basically told her that if she didn't want to just end up in bed, then she needed to start working out. So my mom started training her actually over just Zoom calls. And, over the course of time, they still do this once or twice a week, and, Sunday afternoons or something. But she can do sit to stands, like squats essentially, right out of her chair. She can put her dishes away in her cabinet without her rotator cuff and like shoulder bothering her. So there's so many benefits that you can get, and strength that you can gain at any age. And I feel like it's really valuable for people to understand that and know that seeking out help at any age and wherever you are in your fitness journey is super beneficial for that longevity standpoint. And the other thing I think about is muscle and fitness as like a compounding interest, essentially, because so many people think about money with compounding interest and like each little bit. But for me, I think about movement or strength or whatever it is that you're doing, those little bits over time, they just add up and they actually add years to the end of your life. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that your grandfather is working out with you. That's so great.
Yeah. And I really I have two thoughts. One
Yeah.
of which is I love how your content and the message that you send to the world is very lifestyle related. Because I think that's, I mean, to be honest, that's one of the biggest struggles that we have with clients on a daily and weekly basis of like, they can show up for their 30-minute, 45-minute workout and they can crush that. But the progress they make during that workout will always be very limited by what they're doing outside of the gym, or be very emphasized and illuminated in a positive way by what they're doing outside of the gym. And I say that to say, like, it is more than just showing up and working out, it's a lifestyle. And this would be the easiest job in the world if more people understood that from a holistic and fundamental level, right? And
100.
so, yeah, I mean, trying to, and I guess my second quick caveat is that I think that also illuminates more of the importance in knowing how to speak to your client. Like I can't expect my goals as a 28-year-old male to be the same as a 64-year-old male or female, right? Like knowing how to train that person while still staying true to the principles of fitness and knowing how to talk with through goals and things like that. Like that's important because I think as trainers, a lot of times we like to kind of live vicariously through our clients. And that's fun, but that can sometimes be a pitfall of trainers where the adaptability suffers because we think everyone should train like we do. And sometimes as a 28-year-old male, like a 65-year-old male can't recover at to the extent I can as fast as I can. And I have to take that into account when I'm thinking about the best way to get from point A to point B in terms of helping that client, coaching them towards their goals, right? And so I feel like I'm kind of overemphasizing this topic, but I'm just passionate about the fact that I think the quality in the industry, that's the differentiator in terms of quality. If you can know how to train a specific person, given their situation and their nuances and maybe past injuries, that's what sets someone apart in terms of creating sustainable change. So,
Yeah, definitely. And I think so. Then another thing, kind of to riff off of that, things that came to mind for me was one, like, what was it? So with all that, like coming into like specific people specific goals, I guess one question I have for you is how do you maybe work, how do you emphasize the lifestyle component to people who maybe not might not be coming in with that thought exactly? They might have more of like a short term, just kind of more something short term in their mind. How do you emphasize that longevity and lifestyle component of fitness within your clientele or with the people that you have conversations with? Because I'm always curious. I feel like sometimes people get it and it's like an automatic switch, but then other times I feel like it's really hard to convince people of that. I don't think we can convince anybody of that. I feel like a lot of times people have to come to that conclusion on their own. But I don't know. Maybe how do you work on educating people in that way?
yeah, it's a fantastic question, and we could spend the entire hour talking about this because it has a lot to do with like human behavior and psychology. I think you and I would both agree that we're not here to sell anyone something that feels dishonest or untrue as to walking the walk and talking the talk. That's once again, I respect you a lot in that way of someone who practices what they preach. Um, and to a certain extent, there's no way of getting around that. I think as a lot of times, maybe you can relate to this as well. I think in the early stages, and I was just a kid when I started this business, but in the early stages, like I really felt like I had a lot of imposter syndrome. And I felt like when I was, having a consultation with a client, I was so lacking in confidence because I think part of me doubted if I had what it took or I was worthy of asking a person for amount of money for them to train. And the more I kind of faced that fear internally, the more I realized that this is worth every penny and more of what I'm asking. But that's because I think it ties into that lifestyle component of I'm doing what I'm walking the walk, I'm talking the talk. I know that my results speak for themselves. I know that if you buy into this mentally and physically for all the right reasons, that you can accomplish what I've accomplished. And so I think internally kind of facing that fear helped me to step out of that imposter syndrome and step into more of who I am today, which is like that confidence that um yeah, the confidence that it will work. And I think there are exceptions that where people maybe have a long list of medical conditions or something that's a chronic issue in which their results may not be as quick or as predictable as someone else's, right? And in that, I still know that people who can commit to the process for the long game, they accomplish everything and more than they thought they would. And those people, I gotta say, like those people are rare, but the examples of those people and those life changes, that's what makes this one of the most fulfilling jobs in the world.
Yeah, 100%. And I really value the way that you embody, the longevity component and everything. You walk the walk, talk the talk, or walk the walk as well as talk the talk, right? With everything here that you do with Be Strong and with your personal fitness and everything as well. And I think that you're so right. Like just by leading by example is the way to really help show people as much as possible. Because and I think being really honest, like you said, like being really honest with people that this is not like it's not a quick fix, but if the consistency is there and it doesn't have to be like crazy intense, like you don't have to be in the gym, 7 days a week. In fact, we both know that that's not good. We need our rest as well. And but showing up consistently, like day after day, week after week, and just building slowly but like surely, and building that confidence. And I think that is, yeah, such a good way to approach it. And it's actually something that I have struggled with in terms of like my business. Actually, I realized too, like from an imposter standpoint, I realized like I had this vision of myself in a business, running a business, that I was like, okay, I don't feel qualified to do this, I guess, because I'm just starting. When I first started. And then two, I realized I kind of started comparing where I am in my business to my own fitness journey. And I realized I've been lifting weights for coming at like 11 years, 12 years, and I've been running for 14 years. Like where I am today didn't happen overnight. And so I've learned to like be able to give myself grace in my business, realizing that like things are going to take time, and it's more so just that like consistent effort, and showing up in the most authentic way possible, that really resonates. So yeah, I definitely resonate with everything that you said. So it's really,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Definitely. And I'm definitely there with the imposter syndrome. I feel like from a PT standpoint, and then also as a business owner, like I think we all struggle with that. But like you said, the authenticity piece, I think when you really can like tap into that and kind of face those fears, we both know how important it is. And like what more important thing can you give somebody than years of their life back, right? And so I think that what you do is just so important with that, really.
I want to say something maybe semi-controversial, but
Yeah.
I think I learned, and I am still learning, that in as much as a client comes to Be Strong to accomplish X, Y, or Z, and as much as that's an exchange in terms of, that person pays a certain amount of money and they receive a certain amount of coaching, and there's some level of expectation in that transaction. I think what I've learned is that as you can only give as much as a coach to the extent that the person is willing to give back from a client standpoint. And I don't just mean monetarily. I'm talking more about if someone's showing up ready to crush it, and they're receptive and they're teachable and they care, and their care is shown by how much they apply in lifestyle outside of the gym, like that's a client that I am obviously excited to train. That's a client that I'm very committed to. And that's a client that very much calls forth and calls out the best of me, my best work. And so that's different than client B who shows up 5 minutes late, consistently under eats or overeats, is not hitting their step goal, is really just there to check the box that they think is right for them,
Mhm.
but they're doing the bare minimum at best. And those people will always exist, and we still serve those people exceptionally well. I guess what I'm saying is, the as a trainer, this is yet another example of the way that you, by the very nature of the game, show up differently for people who have shown that they will only give so much or so little into you. And so, just like any other relationship in life, right? And so, doesn't mean we underserve or overserve. It just means that certain people are coming to the table maybe more prepared or less prepared than others. And the way at which you can speak to those people and serve those people has a lot to do with the success of business.
Yeah.
So
No, that's so true. And I mean, there's an energy transfer between people, like you said, with any relationship, right?
it's
And so
fantastic. Great way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, it really is. And I mean, and there's actually a lot of like science and psychology. Like I've been so interested in psychology recently. I've been like diving in on a lot of different podcasts because I think that it's like one of the biggest generally missing links. Like I think that you know a lot about the psychology of coaching, and I'm diving a lot more into it as well, and have learned some from like my PT background as well. But there's just so much more, and there's so much more research kind of coming out about how these energy transfers, how psychology and all of these things kind of impact the way that maybe somebody is successful or not successful. And from my own personal journey in the physical therapy realm, one of the biggest reasons that I left left the insurance based world and moved to the cash based world was because people who were showing up, particularly in the clinic that I was working in, were there just to check a box. They were
Totally.
there to get the 6 sessions before they went and got their
Yep.
surgery or whatever it was. And they weren't doing their exercises at home. They weren't, avoiding the things that I told them to avoid, or moving in the ways that I had suggested for them to move. And so it felt like I was not being a good PT because didn't have the ability to know if the things that I was actually then providing them were going to work because they didn't implement them. And so that was very frustrating for me. And I, would come home and have hours of paperwork, and then I didn't have any bandwidth to do more research for somebody, or show up with the newest latest thing, because I was like, well, they're not going to do it anyway. And that
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, a controversial thing, but it's
But
so
it discounts, you're right. Like when you're just churning people through the system, it discounts the skill set of people who should be at the top, but it just discounts the whole aspect and the whole subject of health and fitness, and why we're doing what we're doing. And so I think this is a conversation that should happen so much more in terms of just health professionals, because from what I'm seeing, and arguably from what you're seeing too, like the best practitioners, if I can use that word, are not in your franchise offices. They're out doing their own thing, walking the walk, talking the talk, practicing what they preach, hitting long trail runs. Like those are the people who are dynamic and magnetic to be around. Their clients, they're not willing to run through people through the system just for the monetary value of it. And that's, once again, I really respect, first of all, you, and then this conversation, because no one's talking about this in the health field. Why are the like, I know I have an incredible kind of panel of people and referral partners, you being one of those people, that I know that I can refer clients to, and they're going to be in exceptional hands, right? And so that's just a blessing to have cultivated that community, and just kind of build up that confidence that I can know that I can send someone to Libby or to John or whoever, and like they're taken care of. in the ways that are outside of my scope as a trainer.
100%. And I feel like that's for me as well, creating relationships. And like when I first kind of reached out to you to meet and chat, like just trying to create more relationships with people who are, really caring about what they're doing. And like, and like you said, a lot of those people are doing something for themselves. They are in their private practice or cash-based services. And I think that when a lot of people are like, oh, cash based, that's going to be more expensive, or if I go to a more specialized gym like you got yourself, that's going to be more expensive. But it really is that the quality of work and care I think that you receive when somebody is obviously passionate enough to work on creating the thing that they maybe see a need for, or there's a lack of within kind of the general population of whatever that kind of workforce is. It's you get so much more out of it as a client, and I think that's something I wish more people really did understand, because the value is just exponential. So yeah, I appreciate the way that you work within a community of people as well. And like when you had the Be Strong open house and had all of the, your different partners there, that was really cool to be able to meet them as well, because I had so many amazing conversations with the local people that were there. And it's such a great way to continue creating that environment for other people to come and realize and be like, oh yeah, wait, this is different. So yeah.
I love it.
I love it. Okay, so I want to kind of bring that all together. Like, how can we continue to facilitate these relationships between health and wellness providers? And maybe even this is actually, I'm curious for your perspective on this, is I have struggled to kind of break in to the healthcare realm. So the people who are actually in healthcare, like it's been a struggle for me to get in contact with them or figure out how to maybe start to bridge that gap for people between the healthcare system in a traditional sense and then more so maybe the realm that we exist in. So yeah, I'm curious to know your kind of perspective on that, and maybe some ideas that maybe you've had about how to continue creating those connections.
Yeah. Um, Unofficially Be Strong has a tagline that is 3 words, and those 3 words are service above everything. And I really think that's a huge part of kind of the heartbeat of the company. And I bring that up to say that people in healthcare, from what I've seen, probably from what you've seen, obviously you kind of stepped out of that corporate physical therapy world years ago. But those people are so burnt out. And they're people too, and they matter too. And typically they're very overworked and underappreciated. And I'm thinking of a client now. Oh, he's such a great client, and we're great friends. But he's a doctor, and he's been a doctor for decades, and he's in his 60s, and he's still working 12 to 14-hour days, and he's crushing it. Like he's healthy, he's strong, he does awesome, but he's someone who knows that in order to function at a high level of exertion, he has to care for himself. And yes, he's more probably at an advanced level of self awareness to take that step. But a lot of people aren't where he is. Like a lot of people need someone to come to them, someone like you, someone like me, and serve them out of a place of genuine concern, because those people need to be filled up in as much as they're constantly giving to others. Why is it that so much of the medical community is some of the most unhealthy people in America? Why is that? We have to ask that question. And I think, if I could, I think that's probably because those people those people are in the system in as much as they're serving people in the system. And the system, it's like the Matrix. It doesn't care. Like, it's there to make money. America's very monetarily fueled and based. And so From my perspective, I think service above everything matters, because whether you're serving client A or client B, like, it doesn't matter. We're there to serve. And I think I'm not I'm when I started Be Strong, I wanted to tap into the medical community in the same way that maybe you do. And I think I was always looking for ways and hacks and conversations. And I'm not looking for that now. I just know that those people are so burnt out and overstimulated that another conversation probably feels very unappealing to them. And so I'm more at a place in my growth where I would just rather serve those people well and let the service that I provide and the change that I coach them towards speak for itself. And usually those people are very influential and high performing people. And so, once again, if you serve as your primary intention and let that speak for itself, everything below that's going to happen naturally. And so I think that's, to bring it back a full circle, that's the beauty of a network of people who have that same intention and have a high quality and a high skill set that's very needed in our society, right? And that is why partnerships that have that intention of serving is the most important thing for me when I look for people to partner with.
Yeah. No, I love that, service above everything. Like, that's such a good it's such a good tagline, but then it also just rings very true for, the way that you embrace the authenticity of who you are, and like that shines through, and the way that you show up and serve people speaks for itself within that, right? Just like you said. And I kind of, I mean, I do 100% agree. And I think I'm coming to that realization as well, where it's like, yeah, I was, burnt out even after not being in that world for very long. But I know so many people who are people who are in my physical therapy class. I think I was the first one. And then there are maybe six others I didn't graduate that long ago. Within 4 years, there were six other people who had given up the insurance-based world and moved to cash-based and have opened up their own clinics and done their own thing. And it's just very much the product of what that system has like created. And like you said, that matrix, and those people who really care about their body and care about, fueling themselves as well internally from a health perspective, physically, mentally, etc. It's really that they saw that wasn't the way to go, and moved a different direction. And yeah, I think, yeah, it's tough to convince somebody, or like kind of get them out of the haze of what they're doing when they're so bogged down. But being authentic and leading by examples is as much as we can do. I think
Absolutely.
it's true.
Yeah. And I don't know if I want to
Yeah.
caveat real quick one more
No.
time. I think a lot of people, I get this from clients. I know you get it from clients. I know you probably have people DMing you all the time of like your runs and all that stuff. But a lot of people look at us as this measure, like as this person that's unattainable to ever aspire to be even close to the capacity that you exert on a daily basis. No, very few people, probably, I would venture to say, can see themselves in the same kind of lifestyle that you talk about a lot. And I think that's because a lot of times people think people have the wrong idea as to where they are, but actually how quick they could see change in all the ways that are very inspiring. So for example, like I got this from a chiropractor, this this mindset years ago, but a big part of his message was like, you're not broken. Like your body's not broken. Your body's designed and created to heal and to be strong. And all of the holistic kind of concepts that we're talking about. And I love that, because I think a lot of people, they hurt their knee in high school, and for the rest of their life they think, dang, I got a bad knee, I can't jump, I can't run, it's going to cause pain. but I see it every day. Like the specifics of what they're dealing with. Oh, you probably have really poor tibialis rotation. You probably have very limited ankle mobility. You probably have very limited internal rotation of your hip. Like those are all very specific things that can be addressed in one session and see immediate improvement in. And I don't say that to say that results happen overnight, because they don't. But all the more reason that you should find a health professional that cares about you and that is very skilled in what they do. And most importantly, like they can see you for who you are and call you up towards where you could be. And sometimes it takes that person kind of holding your hand, telling you you can do it, and coaching you there. And that's why I'm very interested in conversations about lifestyle and practical solutions to what people are dealing with, because no one is broken and no one is too far to be helped or fixed in a way that could change their life.
Yeah, that's so true. And this is a conversation, I can't remember who I was having this with or how it kind of came up previously, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot, is that, fitness is so personal, and like bodies are so personal. And I think because it's so personal, everybody or a lot of people feel that they should know about their body, that they should already know what to do, or they should already know how things are functioning in their body. And I have told this to a couple clients, is like, it's so, like, I went to school for 7 years to understand the way that the body is working, right? Like I have 4 years of undergraduate in food science and nutrition and my doctorate in PT. Like, I don't expect you to know what tibial, the tibial rotation or the hip internal rotation could be causing or not causing. Like, that's why you come see somebody like a physical therapist. Could be me, could be another good physical therapist. That's why
Hmm.
you go to a trainer, because we have studied and we have knowledge that we don't expect other people to know. And I think
Yeah.
that that's something that is really big, that people, they're like, oh, when I don't have to be the keeper of all knowledge. Maybe they're an amazing lawyer. It's like, oh, I don't know anything about law, so like,
Yeah.
you go do that. Like, this is my job, that's your job. And that's why we really have to help. I think we have to help educate people that it's okay to not know everything about your body.
Hmm.
Like, seek education on it, though, through a health professional, or health and wellness professional, because yeah, nobody can know all of those things about
Yeah.
the body.
And there's almost like this would be the equivalent of being like, I hate working on cars. I hate it. I want nothing to do with it. I just want to know that I can trust the mechanic, that he's not going to rip me off. And so like it's the there you're right, there's this stigma around like, oh, I should know my body. I know why this is happening. I have PCOS, like whatever. Like there's this stigma that is oftentimes even underneath, kind of rooted in this fear and this victim mentality that like, well, for whatever reason, but it would be the same, like the equivalent of that conversation would be like, I should know how to fix the alternator in my car. It's like, I don't give a crap about that, like send it away. So like go to
Yeah.
someone who can help you with what specific goal that you're looking to accomplish. And great, if you find out that you're more interested in that subject upon learning more in that, then that's awesome. But like, I don't expect everyone to be as passionate or knowledgeable about fitness as I am. That's kind of why they come to the professional. And
Right.
so, like, the stigma needs to stop, because it's really unnecessary, honestly.
Yeah. And I think that this is something you brought up, kind of like fear too. And this is something that I'm seeing. And like, nowadays, if you run your own business, you've got to be on social media. And so this is something that I have seen a lot, is there's like these different camps, right? Like, and a lot of the like camps of extremes, whether it's certain types of fitness or diet or whatever, like people will live and die by the carnivore diet or by the vegan diet, right? Or hit training versus like, low intensity, like long duration. Like, I guess, I mean, I do a lot of educating, I feel like, with people, and I'm sure that you do as well, of like dispelling all of those myths and like trying to give them the nuance of the messy middle. But like, what are maybe some of the things that you hear most often that people come in with, either whether it's fear related or like misinformation that they're hearing or seeing on TikTok or whatever? Like, what are some of those things that you generally like have to readdress with people?
Mhm. It's a good question, and I think in as much as the right information is important, the delivery of that information is just as important. So if someone comes in and they, "Oh my gosh, carnivore is the way. It's ancestral, it's primal, it's the way to go. It's awesome. I'm doing it starting tomorrow. Whole Foods after this." Like, great. And I don't wanna shoot that person down, but I do want to challenge their thought process depending on how wrong it is. And I say wrong respectfully. But like if it falls way outside the confines of balance or what is more tried and true, then that may inform the way I communicate with them. And I say that to say like Oh, probably the most common age-old one is when women come in the gym and I don't want to get bulky, right? You're someone who lifts freaking heavy weights, and you're someone who looks great because of that and performs great because of that and feels amazing because of that. And so dispelling those myths in a socially strategic way is kind of the messy middle that you referred to, in my opinion. And once again, I think a lot of trainers become a trainer because they're passionate about training, and then they discover that it takes a heck of a lot of psychology to be good with clients and these conversations that can be sometimes messy. And so yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. Sorry for the ramble, but
No, it does. And it's like, because there are those things that, I mean, I hear the bulky thing constantly. And like, I generally kind of challenge people with a little bit of like humor. And I'm like, oh, like, do you think I look bulky? And
nice.
I'm like, oh, and of course, like, oh no, I'm like, well, I've been lifting heavy weights for, this amount of time and like purposely been trying to build muscle for this amount of time. And, I look strong at this point after 11 years, but
Mhm.
but I'm like, if you don't think that I look bulky, then don't worry. You're not gonna turn into the Hulk overnight.
And I actually want to ask because I
Yeah.
have an opinion about this, and I think it's still forming, and I think this would be kind of a quick segue.
Yeah.
But there's so much research coming out about like genetics and genetic expression, especially as it relates to lifestyle. And so I guess my point of bringing that up is to say it is not unrealistic to think that your body may react differently to strength training compared to someone else. I think that because, for example, like the length of my quadricep muscle might be different than my friend's length of his quadricep muscle. And even though we do the same exercise, my quadricep could grow in a different way than his does. And so, practically, that manifests as genetic expression being expressed differently, but a lot of times that can that can apply a lot to the lifestyle of the person. For example, I have a client who looks incredible. Like she's very fit. She's in her 60s, and she is a huge inspiration and advocate for the whole lifestyle. I mean, this woman freaking cold plunges like 5 minutes. Not that that's good. That's a whole nother conversation. Anyways, my point is, she very much walks the walk, and not all of her family members are as committed in the way that she is. And she looks very different because of the choices she makes, both micro and macro, on a daily, weekly, annual basis, right? And so your body ca- I guess the whole summation of this conversation is that I think that regardless of how your body expresses increase in muscle mass, it is always a good thing to be strong. And 99.9 times out of 100, that strength in terms of increased muscle mass looks very good and looks very appealing. And I think if more people understood that and had more peace about that, it would encourage a lot of them to build lasting muscle mass, right?
Yeah,
So,
100%. And that's something that, yeah, like I think people see, they see like the Mr. Olympia or the like bodybuilding competitions, and like maybe people don't realize it, but those people are all on steroids. Like you and I know that, but I like if people haven't been in that world, and I've competed in bodybuilding like way back in 2017, and like I have more muscle now than I did then,
yeah,
but I was up against people that there's just no way. Like I did that competition for myself. Like I wasn't trying to compete against other people, because there's just no way that I was going to be able to compete against people who are taking additional substances, and like
yeah,
not. So, I think that that's something else people have to understand, is that if they have this vision of maybe somebody who's bulky in their mind, like who are they actually comparing themselves to? Are they
yeah,
comparing themselves to somebody who's just like a fit, active trainer like yourself or myself? Or are they comparing themselves to like Mr. and Mrs. Olympia, that bodybuilding competition? Like that's not, that's there's a lot of additional things going on there. And then the interesting thing about genetics, I think it is definitely true. Like from I have really long legs, so putting on muscle on my legs is really hard, but it
yeah,
makes me a good runner, especially from a
totally.
point, right? So I have a lot of more muscle for like endurance in my legs, but I'm not as like powerful from a strength wise in my legs, as maybe some of my other friends who are lifting, and I'm like, dang, like they are just massive quads. I'm like
Hmm.
jealous of that kind of, right? But like we all want what we don't have, and
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, well obviously like their femur length is different, like their total body proportions are different. And I think that there's more research coming out about all of the different like genes that possibly could influence one way or the other. But I think too, from like a metabolic standpoint, there are certain people, and I remember studying this in what I did, like my nutrition coaching certification, was you know based on our heritage, like epigenetic wise,
yeah,
um there are factors of whether that are going to make us maybe more able to metabolize fats, or maybe more able to metabolize carbs. And so there might be slight nuances. Like there's always basic principles, but there might be slight nuances in the way that somebody feels based on their genetics, epigenetics. Like for me, I could never be keto. Like I run too much, but like carbs, like I need carbs. But I do okay if I have like lower fats. Like I don't really notice a difference that much. Um, but I have other people that are like, I get brain fog if I don't have like a lot of these fats, and like carbs make me feel lethargic. I'm like, okay, well, again, there's basic principles that we need to kind of abide by, but there's nuance within all of that. And I think that's where it all comes back to that, just like being specific to the individual and like trying things. I think that's another thing.
experimenting. Yeah,
Experimenting. It's huge, right? Like, I think people forget that, while we do have a lot of knowledge, we're not necessarily inside of their body. And so if we're, I always talk about it as a team. Like it's a team. There has to be constant communication, because otherwise, like I need to understand how, say from a physical therapy standpoint, somebody's feeling when they're doing a particular exercise, and then that I can change it if it's not feeling good. But the same thing goes with so many things. I'm sure you find that as well with people you train and talk about nutrition stuff with as well.
yeah, totally. Exactly. I think there are nuances to principles that may better apply to an individual, but not to overgeneralize, I just don't feel like the majority of people are even getting to the point of that. Like they don't they're hopping on these very short-lived kind of, oh, the carnivore diet, that must be the way. It's not that it's not the way, it's just that you saw a TikTok and now you're ready to overhaul your life and your pantry because of it. It's like, so I think people are looking for more kind of an identity in terms of what to ascribe their identity to, and in that find, I don't know what they're looking to find,
Yeah.
but I think that in that aspect of this conversation, that experimentation can take a while, and all of these things seem to be very all or nothing, hot or cold, and it's like, no, like maybe you actually do need a little bit of fiber in your diet. Like that would probably be a blessing to your body, you know? And so, yeah.
So true. I literally had this. I'm laughing because I had this conversation the other day with somebody. I was like, colon cancer is a thing.
And America is one of the highest colon cancer producing countries, for the record.
Yes. And I'm like, if you don't have fiber, then that is going to be a problem. Like, this might be something that we should consider. But again, it's like, how do you approach that in a way that is not going to just completely just like tell somebody they're completely wrong, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, let's like think about the nuance and like see how we can educate
And
them.
and here's another example, like, and I'm not hating on this because I think it's actually, it has some merit, but there's a lot of, and you know this, there's a lot of very unbelievably good runners and professionals who are vegan, right? They're plant-based athletes, and that's okay, but no one's having a conversation as to why they're plant-based. What makes that lifestyle? What makes those dietary preferences better for them? And I would venture to say, as someone who probably has an above average knowledge of nutrition, I think it's because the amount of exertion required to process more plant based nutrition takes less energy than if you're pounding a steak every night, right? And so my point in saying that is, do I think that plant-based is right for most people all the time? No. Do I see why a lot of people in specific circumstances would choose that based on scientific data? Absolutely. And so I guess that's kind of the finesse of challenging someone and their mindsets or thought processes or conceptual ideas versus educating them in something that could be different than what they're currently thinking. And I think, once again, the finesse of that conversation, the skill set of navigating that is how you really have a shot at helping someone long term.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
so yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's interesting. This is kind of a rabbit hole, but I enjoy this part of the conversation because I'm like, oh, this is, uh, I was listening to a podcast. Esther Perel is a psychotherapist, and I've been listening to a lot of her podcasts recently. And she was giving feedback to somebody that essentially, like, the art of conversation has really been lost for with a lot of people, especially when we're so distracted by our phones or we don't have to interact with people face to face and we just start texting them or messaging them or whatever it is. And so that's a really interesting, it's interesting when we start to talk about that in a way to like talk to clients, because I think that for as a practitioner, we maybe have more experience with talking to people and like having conversations with people, or at least some of us might. And but it's also like how to engage that client within that conversation and make them feel like safe and heard, while maybe challenging them with these things that are difficult, and difficult a lot of times because, like you said, people attach their identity to these, and health, like we talked about, is so personal that it feels like if you attack veganism to a vegan, like
That's really great.
it's
Yeah, it feels
it's
very
like a
personal.
personal
Yeah,
attack, you know?
yeah. No, you're 100% right. And I know we would agree on this because it's such a powerful aspect of human connection. But like, once again, the best shot at creating a meaningful connection with someone is by being a good listener and showing that you care, right? And like the people who are just there to listen so they can talk, like that's very obvious in a conversational setting and it's very unappealing. And so as a human, as a health professional, like I'm most concerned about listening to that person, and I know you are too before you can interject. And if they even don't ask for your opinion in some subjects, then like sometimes, like blessings on your carnivore diet. Like, let me know how it goes. Like because if they don't open the door for mutual thoughts and conversation, then the invitation has not been given. And so I think all of these kind of subjects apply to someone's goals and transformations as a physical therapist, as a trainer, as the crossover between all of that, because it really does matter when you're talking about helping someone and coaching someone. Um, and I'm really obviously passionate about learning and experimenting and growing more in that, in addition to the actual skills of training and running a business. So
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, what we've kind of talked about a lot more is the human side of
yeah,
all of this, because we could sit here and we could talk about reps and sets and like all the things and, the just like kind of
yeah.
the basics of what it means to be a trainer or to be a physical therapist. But I think that what really I appreciate about this conversation is the depth to which we can talk about how like the human aspect of that and like
Yeah.
really the connection there, because that again is something I think is really kind of being lost a bit. And this is something that I've thought quite a bit about, but we're in this like time when people are so untrusting. They're untrusting of the media. They're untrusting of people. They get ghosted. There's it's there's a big lack of trust right now, and so I think being able to create trust with a client or with any relationships that you're creating is
Hmm.
so important. And
That's so good.
yeah. Yeah. How do you like, is there, I mean, you obviously just embody and like show up for your clients and that helps to create trust, but is there anything that comes to mind that when you kind of think about that maybe that you do differently than other people do?
Oh man, you caught me off guard on that one.
I have to
I
think about that
conceptually,
too.
I know a million things that I do differently than other people, and I know how that sits. It's just hard to verbalize that.
Yeah.
I think you kind of already nailed it, and it's that trust. I think we both know that this industry is so known for being so crooked and backwards, and in that, there's a huge invitation and opportunity to build trust. And I have found, once again, my one string guitar is that I just start with being a really good listener. And I start with, I think there's a lot, and obviously like psychology 101, but there's a lot, like 90% of communication is nonverbal, right? And so if I'm if I'm showing up like genuinely interested and curious, and curiosity is huge, then there's a lot of energy being transferred that builds trust within a few minutes of conversation. And so I don't say that to say I'm this like psychological guru and come to me with all your questions about how to hack the system and win trust from anyone. Definitely not. But like, I just think you have to care, and the lack of caring, like, people can detect when something feels fishy or disgenuine. And so I think, even quick caveat, like when I'm looking at trainers to join the team or to interview or hire, I very much know that I can catch them up to speed on the technical aspect of what they may not currently have. But what you can't catch someone up on is caring, and the heart behind why they do what they do and the way they show up for other people. And I think it goes back to that service above everything. If they're there for themselves, ultimately, if they're there to to do anything but serve to the best of their ability, then I can detect that. And that's not someone I genuinely want to work with. And once again, that's why referral partners who have the same intention is important to me. But it's also why coworkers in that way are important to me. And it's also why clients come to the trainer who is trustworthy and